logistics to put this on, which is no small task. So Nick, thank you for doing that. As Nick said, I've known Nick for a long time. You know, we did some practice days here with in Canada around 2010 and 11. Some of the guys from Canada came down.
We had Faxon come to a school one day. That was cool.
You know, a lot of these practice days, you never know who will show up. But to your point, or to my point, the organization, logistics, and being able to come here is fun for me. And I just say thank you for doing that. And thank you to you guys for your interest. It's a system, model, way of organizing golf so that you can store all your information that you have in a way that organizes the game so that you can distill it down and make it simpler, easier to play. So I like to make golf easy, not hard. I think that's the idea of teaching, is to make it easier, not harder. In the process of doing that, you have to go step by step by step to build up a system to organize around. And as you do that, then you go through, build out a system and a model, and you can summarize it, condense it, condense it, condense it, condense it, keep condensing the information to where you could boil the whole system down and your whole swing thought to a couple words. You know, you'd like to think it's all baked in the cake and you can just hit the ball. So I would say that, you know, one of the most important things I think I could leave you with today is a visual reference system in your head to picture what to do, to be able to hit a ball out there and determine if you did it or not. And when you have a problem, how to mitigate yourself, how to keep yourself on the point. And when you fall off one way or another and get in trouble, how to bring yourself back. And then have a system that's detailed enough to show you how to move forward, how to get better. So how to keep what you have when you have a problem arises, and how to build onto it without losing what you already learned. So there's a scaffolding process, an organization process, and then a process of adding to. I take as part of that, systems, models. Systems, I think, they're in everything we do. We use them to organize our knowledge. In golf instruction, it's unfortunately, in my view, it's not taken to the word system very kindly, under the idea that it's an art and everyone's different, and so we don't organize very well. And I would just say that any endeavor has a system, and it marks our development as people. So I just use as an example the solar system to model the universe, the highway system that guides all the travel, the weather system to track the weather so we can plan our day. So the alphabet, right, would be a system of symbols and sounds connected for words, for communication. Numerical system for counting. It's all organized systems, interconnected. And then models, that's also not a popular word. We were just talking about this morning about swing models, and it seems to be like, to people, there's so many different ways. And I would say that it seems so different because we really haven't gotten down to the bedrock of what's the same. So we're out here talking about the superficial things. They're important, but really aren't the core of what makes swings work. I would, as I said, we want to build a system to organize around and to help build a model swing in your mind. And we use models to predict outcomes. That's the purpose of them. We model the weather, we model the stock market. We model, they're building that clubhouse up there yesterday. They didn't just do it willy-nilly and bring the cement truck and hammer and nails in, right? They had a plan before they ever started. They knew what it was going to look like before they ever started. and everybody working on the project knew the plan. So the coach, right? The coach and the player knew the plan, and the plan guided all the steps. And I just think a lot of times golfers don't have a coordinated plan. In an hour lesson, it's hard to get enough of an overview of that plan. You know, the coach is always working to get the one part, which, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt, is the right part. But there's other parts. And if you don't know where it fits into the whole thing, other problems develop when you leave. You do too little or too much. There's got to be some way to equalize the usage of even when you take a lesson about closing your club face. You know, you're slicing, you close your club face. You got to know how to normalize that or equalize it, not to do too much and start hooking. So there's got to be a way in your mind to visualize how to control that. So systems and models, very scientific organization. What would a system for golf look like? Where would you start? And I would just say that would demand an explanation of the function of the swing, the fundamentals. You hear all the time, you just need to go back to the fundamentals. So that would beg the question, well, what are they? What is fundamental? When I was learning golf formally, you know, I played without lessons and never wanted to take them. I just thought I played other sports, thought I could learn to play, got okay, good enough to get a scholarship. But once I started to try to learn golf and learn the individual parts, my swing at that time was one thing, my swing. It had no individual parts. I didn't know how to break it apart in my head. And of course my coach didn't know swing mechanics and I didn't know how to practice, so it was a disaster. That happens a lot when people start to try to practice and learn. So I needed to define a system, and golf, you know, instruction was a lot of times is presented as the fundamentals are grip, alignment, posture, stance, and any, you know, sort of any measuring of the swing would realize that there's no standard grip. Sometimes people change them from shot to shot, and you go out on the tour, they have all different modifications of the grip. You know, Jordan Spieth and John Rahm, one or two in the world, has a 0-degree grip. You know, Roy McIlroy, number 2 or 3 or 4, has been number 1 in the world, has a rotated grip. You know, which one am I going to tell the person who's just getting started down here? Which one's right? My point was that if I need a system to explain how all those work. And so no standard, which is the opposite of fundamental, variable, not fundamental. To my point about your question about other programs, I wouldn't go. I don't like to. I like to try to say something nice, and you know, I give all the coaches the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing. But there's not always a system that shows the geometry of how it's working. So grips, alignment. You know, if I studied alignment and just study the stance, Nick, if you'll hand me a stick. If I were to do a study of alignment in the golf swing, write a thesis on the alignment of the stance in the golf swing, and I could group people by feet being to the left of the stance, and then that grouping would be Jack Nicklaus, start right at the top. Lee Trevino, Fred Couples, go out on the tour today, Bubba Watson. I stand almost sideways. So maybe that's the way to play. You know, I tell the story, I go down to Bears Club a lot in Florida, go out there with a few guys, practice, and you know, Jack would see me out there. Not that this has happened, but it could. You know, he's chipping a few balls. Hey, you're that stack and tilt guy. He had dinner with Mike and asked him a bunch of questions a couple of times. But you know, so I go out there and he said, "Oh, you're that stack and tilt guy. Watch me hit a couple." And I watch him hit, and I said, "Jack, you're aiming to the left." He said, "Well, I won 18 majors like that." Important, but variable. Meaning, if I also did a study and it was a thorough study, I'd see that Sam Snead, you know, Arnold Palmer anyway, to the right. Go out on the tour today, a guy like Matt Kuchar might play 50 yards to the right, closed stance. Bubba Watson aims 50 yards to the left, and sometimes they change it from shot to shot. So different stances. I need a system to organize why and when and how to do that. Aiming the club, that's also a variable. I think you can make the point that you wouldn't want to aim the club at the target. If you were trying to hit a draw or a fade, or even a straight shot, but the club wouldn't be aimed at the target. Okay, it would be slightly one direction or the other. In that category, you have guys like Ben Crane or Steve Elkington. They got the club aimed way to the right, and then they might play with KJ Choi or Jasper Farley, who's got the club aimed way to the left, and everything in between. And they changed that from shot to shot. So no standard there. So I call those all variables, not fundamentals. Grip alignment, posture. You have Bryson DeChambeau standing on that COVID U.S. Open at Wingfoot. In the last group, it was Bryson DeChambeau standing straight up and down like this with his arms this way. And then you'd have a guy like Matt. His playing partner in the last group was Matt Wolf, who's got his club way down like this. So there's different postures. I'm going to for sure have some recommendations to standardize that, but it's not fundamental. It's variable. What is fundamental? How can we measure golfers at different skill level? What is the function of the swing? I'd just say all those fundamentals, grip alignment, posture, and stance are static. They happen before the swing. You could do them exactly as the coach says and still be terrible. Couldn't measure skill by any of them. They're important. We'll probably work on all of them, at one point or another. But I can't measure skill by them. How could I measure skill? Well, I'd say the first function of the swing would be to be able to control. I have to hit the ball. I can't miss. So I have to be able, as part of that, be able to swing, control the low point or the bottom of the arc, where the club hits the ground. I can swing, hit the ground over and over again in the same spot. Control with the bottom of the arc. Consistent contact. If I can control the low point of the swing, it doesn't make me great. It makes me okay every day. I'm not out on the course worried about topping and batting. I know, even though I don't play much now, I know I have that part always to build on. And what controls that must be pretty simple, because statistically the best players don't screw that part up. They can always keep that part, and which would define it as relatively simple task. And then, but the course players, on the other hand, would swing and they'll hit the ground further back, and they'll miss the ground, and then they'll hit closer to the ball, and the dispersion where the bottom of the arc is varies. There's a wider dispersion, and it tends to be further back on the ground. We can measure skill by those. We can measure proficiency in golf. They're very closely correlated to handicap level by where the low point is. Now, there's a lot of teaching programs that start like that. Control the low point, consistent contact, start with putting, just hit the ball. Chipping, control the low point, hit down with the ball, hit high enough on the face to use the law. Long chipping, add a little bit of club head speed, then the full swing. It would be like a progression into golf. I get that. And so if I was building a true system for golf, I'd have to start and use the same diagrams and the same logic to get from putting to driving. So first control the low point. But as I was saying, that if I just chip the ball and make the right contact and hit the ball 30 yards, I'm still not any good. Right? I've got to hit the ball far. And I can measure skill also by how fast people swing. Better players swing faster than poor players, and they hit the ball with less dynamic loft. The higher handicapped golfers have more loft when they hit the ball. They can't hit it as far. So I could also measure skill by distance, energy into the system, club head speed, dynamic loft. And then third, the third function of the swing would be predictable curve. I have to have some sort of grid in my mind, or some way of controlling the geometry of the swing to be able to predict where the ball goes. So I need a predictive model. In designing the system, I need to be able to explain how all these people are using the variables of grip, alignment, posture, stance. I'd have to explain how all those work and make some sense of each one of them. So that's 3 fundamentals: contact, distance, direction, in that hierarchy. And whenever you hit, I can use that to assess skill. So those would be dynamic fundamentals versus static. And I can measure skill by each one of those, as opposed to grip, alignment, posture, stance. So whenever I start to watch you hit, you'll hear me, I'll narrate the shots, just so you see what's happening, or not you, but people see what's happening. A lot of times, hey, I was playing good, I've been watching the system, now I'm playing bad. Okay, what's bad about it? Are they thin? Are they hooking? What's the shot pattern? There's a pattern, there's always a pattern. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 overlaced that makes it hard to see. So when you hit on there, rate each shot, help you to see the pattern. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 parts. We'll pick the first part that gives you the most bang for the buck, gives you the most improvement, the subroutine of the swing that helps you to get better the fastest, and then the second part that helps you with the next problem, and the third part. We'll do an order there. And that's different than a sequential way of teaching, meaning you have to get the setup just right, you have to get the first part of the backswing just right, you have to get the second part of the backswing, you have to get the top just right, you have to get the downswing right, you have to get all that being right to be able to get back to the ball, quote unquote. That would never work. You'd never make it to the ball, right? There'd always be some deviation that you're trying to allow for, or correct for during your swing. No one would ever swing perfectly or the same way every time. It'd be impossible. So there has to be some way in your swing that swing moderates and controls itself. Like, the airplane in the air hits a bit of turbulence and there's a stabilizer that kicks it back in line. So there has to be a way for the whole swing to normalize itself. So 3 fundamentals: contact, distance, direction. What controls the first fundamental? I'd have to build a model to control the first fundamental. That would be a simple equation that would start with where the weight is. Nick, any chance that you can bring that table and just sit right here for a second? As I build a model to explain where to control that first fundamental, I'd start with 2 centers. That would be the center of the hips and the center of the shoulders. So, I'm just set this right over here, guys. I'm going to sketch this out. I think it's always helpful. So I'm going to set this right over here by the guys here.
Yeah.
Sorry. So if you guys just want to stand up for a second. We'll start building a model, and I said that I'd start with 2 centers. Oh, thank you. That'd be the center of the shoulders and the center of the hips. And those 2 centers will give me the ability to measure how much I've tilted from side to side. And then those 2 centers, the center of the shoulders and the center of the hips, will give me the ability to model how much the golfer's tilted over. So they give me the ability to monitor, those 2 centers will give me the ability to monitor the inclination to the ground. So where those 2 centers are concerned, you step over here now, those 2 centers are concerned, right? The center of the shoulders and the center of the hips, where as they relate to this line in the ground, if I move one or both of them back, I'm prone to hit behind where I started. And if I move one or both of them forward, I'd be prone to hit in front of where I started. So, if I just said the low point being back is a fundamental problem that defines poor play that we can measure and recognize. And And then I suggested one thing that would control that, which is where the two centers are. I'd have a place to start to look in the diagnostic process. And you hit a ball, and you scuff the ground behind the ball, or bend the ball, you'd have a place to start to look. Like a doctor, you know, I say all the time, my daughter, she's 9. Daddy, I don't feel good. I feel bad. Sweetheart, do you have a hangnail on your toe, or or do you have a headache? Is your stomach hurting? What's bad about it? Describe to me what the problem is. Andy, I have the low point back. I'm hitting behind the ball. Okay, then I know I have a place to start to look to see what will cause that. Next, I would say that it wouldn't take very long to understand that I could put those centers all in front. I'll get very particular about them as I go along, right? Very specific, just to shove the boat in the right direction. Generally speaking, where the weight is affects where the club hits the ground. And as I was saying, if I put one or both of the centers in front of this line, I'd be prone to hit farther back. Or if I put one of the centers in front of the line, I could potentially hit forward on the ground. But it wouldn't take much experience to realize I could still hit behind even with the centers forward. So not as far back as if the centers were back, but still behind, indicating that there's something else involved. So the next part, the second thing that would control that first fundamental would be the radius of the stroke, meaning we'll call the shoulder the center, we call the arm and the club shaft, two segments that make a radius, and the club head's orbit would be the circumference of an arm. So center, radius, circumference. So the center, the radius comes from the center, the club head, the circumference of the arm. And as that relates to the low point, Nick, if I just borrow you for just a second, yeah. The radius will be established at the setup. And if I put the butt of the club ahead of the leading edge, say 5 inches, I'd have a shorter radius. I wouldn't be able to reach the stick. And I came through with that short radius. I'd hit high on the ball. And the low point, I wouldn't reach the low point of the swing until later when the radius reached its inline condition, which would be in front of Nick, or in front of the ball on the ground. Alternatively, if I set the radius at the setup, if I use Nick, no, I'm just going to use your nose for a second. Nick's nose for the ball, okay? If I put the butt of the club ahead of the leading edge, say 5 inches, shorten the radius, for whatever reason, when I come down with the wrist uncocks, the radius would reach its inline condition sooner, the low point of the arc would move back, I'd crash into Nick, hit behind where I started. So the second thing that would control that first fundamental would be radius management, as measured by the butt of the club to the leading edge, and the long radius, the low point shifting back during the swing. That's a worldwide epidemic that defines poor play. I find it's not that hard to change if you just know you're doing it. You know how to practice and think about it. And but most people don't recognize it, so they just keep making the same general mistake. The third thing I would say would be the swing direction. Meaning the more I swing to the right, the more the low point moves back. And the more I swing across, the more the low point moves forward. So what I would have there is a 3-variable equation to be able to navigate my way back to the ball. And overwhelmingly, higher handicappers move back. Maybe they think they're supposed to. Maybe they're trying to. And they uncock the wrist. Maybe they think they're supposed to release the club. And they don't know what that means. And the low point is behind the ball every single time they hit. And the only way they ever have of getting back to the ball is to swing across. They'll get back to the ball. So that throws them into a pattern of shots. Or if I just design the shots, that swinging across the ball to get the low point forward, to throw them into a pattern of pulls and deflected slices and a real low pull draw would throw them into a shot tree.
Andy, how many times have people come to your school with the low point too far forward?
Almost never. Doesn't happen. Out of 100, 0.
Maybe with the driver?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Almost never. 2 out of 100. Not very many. Not very many. So that's what I'm saying. The large scale patterns are prevalent. And so learning how to see them by the ball flight, I think is really what would be the motivator to get people to change would be ball flight. And that's the reason why you'd be here, is to be able to hit the ball better. So if they see how their practice would help the ball flight, they'd be motivated to do it, as opposed to not knowing quite what to do, or not knowing quite how to practice it, not knowing what the result would be. So the second fundamental, that gets me through the first fundamental, contact. The second fundamental, distance. Where's the distance come from? How's it built up into the energy into the system built up? Is there an order in which it's built up? And I'd say yes, there's definitely a hierarchy for how energy is applied. If I had a real system, unified system, starting from all the way down from putting to driving, there's definitely a scaffold and an order to applying club head speed or energy to produce the club head speed. And to explain that, and when that's not defined, we end up maybe reading some tip. I'm not hitting it far, and I read some tip about the 100th thing that might give me 5 yards, without really learning to get the most out of the first 90. I learned the last 2% instead of the first 98%. So, to be able to explain how the distance and energy is built up, I'd just say first that golf by design is played on a tilted angle. On a tilted angle, we play standing at the side of the ball. Clubs are angled by design, they're not straight up and down. And as part of that, to swing the club on a tilted angle, the path of the club would move in an arc. The hands would move in an arc. To swing the hands on a tilted angle, that would also be an arc. And the flag on the ground. So energy into the system, distance comes from the idea, property, known as angular momentum. Overwhelmingly, the distance, the speed with which you can swing comes from angular momentum. That word didn't mean much to me. I'm not a physicist. Didn't know how it would apply anyway. Why would someone even be mentioning that? But when I understood that angular momentum could be, the word angular momentum could be substituted for circular momentum versus linear momentum, I started to see how it might be applicable to golf, because I could picture the swing. I could picture the swing as a circle or an arc with a center and a radius, and here's the ground. So I can kind of picture the swing as an arc. So I can start to see, okay, I see the circular momentum here. And the two large arcs that I'm talking about that create circular momentum would be the arc of the hand path and the arc of the club path. And as they move around the spine is the axis of the body. It's mechanical definition, the axis of the body. And as the hands and the club orbit around the spine in the horizontal plane here, that would give angular momentum, circular momentum. And as it went around the spine up and down like this, that would be in the vertical plane. And we blend those together, the up and down, the in and out, to get an angle. So putting, I don't have very much angular momentum, very much circular. It doesn't go in very much, it doesn't go up very much, it doesn't go through very much. It's very small arcs compared to a full swing. So you make the argument in putting, you're trying to annul angular momentum. You don't want to hit a 6-foot putt 60 feet. Right? You want to control the angular momentum. You don't want to whack it off the green. So where's the distance come from? Nick? Where's the energy in the system come from?
Angular momentum.
Circular angular momentum. What are the circles? The arc of the hands, the arc of the club. How are we with that? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, now, which brings me to a lot of people try to hit the ball farther. You watch a video online that says, well, you need to open your hips, right, to swing the club. But you can see how turning my hips, the angular momentum, circular movement of my hips, is not moving the club. Right? I can open my hips without moving the club. So it's really, I could view the swing as a series of additive circles. The individual segments of the body, the arm flexing, right arm flexing could be viewed as an arc. The abduction of the arm could be viewed as an arc. The retraction of the shoulder could be viewed as an arc. The hinging of the wrist, the radial ulnar deviation could be viewed as an arc. Pronating, supinating could be viewed as an arc. The flexing, extending of the leg could be viewed as an arc. The internal rotation of the hip could be viewed as an arc. I could view the swing as a series of additive arcs. And each one of those segments contributes their own angular momentum to the stroke. So, and the function of the swing would be to transfer the angular momentum of all these segments for the hip turn, to transfer the angular momentum I'm creating for the hips through the arm to the club, from the body to the arm to club. So where does the club head speed? It comes from the transfer of the angular momentum from the individual additive arcs of the individual segments of the body. You notice I didn't say anything about shifting back and forth, the linear portion. There's not much there. It's like a timing mechanism for a lot of people, and then so they're not getting much distance by this. It's a training way to, I can hit a ball like that, but I don't get much angular momentum when I do it, or I'm at the margin less angular momentum when I do that. So then that would give us a footing to be able to explain where the distance comes from, the individual additive arcs. And I need to build a model to explain the logic of how much of those arcs to use. How much of the arm do I use? How much of the shoulder do I use? How much of the legs do I use? You'd be surprised how many people ask me, do you swing with your left hand or your right arm? Your left arm or your right arm? You pull with the left, push with the right. I say I do both. I'm using all the segments. There's theory that guides that. It's a large theory. You don't hear much about it. It's called the theory of stress equalization, which suggests that you learn to move all these parts for the purpose of not hurting yourself. Meaning, when I walk over to Nick, I don't hop on one foot. That would wear out my hip and my knee. When I walk over, I use a little bit of my left hip, a little bit of my left knee, a little bit of my left shoulder, a little bit of my spine, a little bit of my right hip, a little bit of my right. I use a little bit of all the parts. I equalize the usage. I never just hop over there because I'd wear out my leg, and I also wouldn't be very good at it, wouldn't be productive. I can walk much better using all the parts equalized. So I equalize the stress for safety and performance. And when we build this model swing, we're going to learn how to equalize all the parts. And if one subroutine, one of these parts is too active relative to all the others, you would see some outcome in play. How are we on that? Just the logic. Which gets me then to the third fundamental, predictable curve. I need some schematics. That's my criticism with the golf books, is there's no mechanical drawings and diagrams. It's just pictures of people swinging. And the advice may be good, but I don't really see how it works. And I'd like to know how it works before I ever start. So when I get off a little bit, I know which part to focus on. And so to be able to model a shot, I'm going to need a diagram. And I've got a foundation of one already built. And I say all the time, this hand path and club path, these arcs on the ground, not only serve as the basis for the angular momentum, but they also serve as the basis for a visual reference system, highway system, mapping system in my mind to show me where to go. And I think about all the play before I learned golf and when I started learning swing mechanics or taking lessons without learning the mechanics, which was different. I had no reference system, so I go out to play, I look down, and I don't see anything. I have no mapping system. I don't see where to go. And then I didn't know in space where I was, didn't know where to try to go. And because of that, I had no mapping system in my mind. I was subject to go anywhere. So when I look down on the ground, out on the course, I might have a shadow to the left or to the right of me. You'd be surprised. I have guys call me for 20 years on the phone and say, I got out there on 16 today and I had a bad shadow. Had a bad shadow. The shadow was to the right. And this shadow to my right, I slice there, I swing across every ball. Visual reference system. And I got out there on 17, I had a good shadow over here. I draw them all, and the shadows on this side, I slice them all. Something's distorting the field, visual reference. That's also like the T's pointed, like, you know, the T, if I'm aiming at the green flag, the T's pointed at the clubhouse. All right, I have to, so, you know, yeah, on the course, the T is pointed one way or the other. The slope is one way or another. The mowing patterns on the ground, the wind, a puff of wind blows one way or another. There's all these things affecting your stimulus. If you don't have a concrete map in your head of where to go, 3 holes of resetting this thing, setting up every time, accounting for all the little slopes. By the time you've done the 3rd hole, you're shifting around, your swing doesn't feel at all with what you left. It begins to degrade. So I need a way, some continuity to be able to keep myself doing the same thing out on the course. So then I'd say that this system, or this mapping system on the ground, if you come over here for a second, please, that on the ground could be raised up into 3-dimensional space. So I could have a mapping system in the air to see where to go. You know, so if I just drew a straight line back on the ground, you see this angle here. So if I move the stick straight back and angle it over in the air, I could have a projection in the air where my hand path would be. And I can tell you, when I first started learning swing mechanics versus taking lessons, really learning, and when I swung back, I had no perspective at all, and I could not believe how far back from the target line that out of the club. My coach was telling me to get wide, lift my arm up. There are guys who do that on the backswing. Kirk would be one, a little bit like this. But when you can kind of drop, you need the angular momentum to get. You need the circular momentum to get the power. Everybody's ultimately going to get it. So in the air, okay, I had no perspective of where to go. And if Nick goes over on the follow through. Yeah, if you just go and stand on this side of me, stand over there if you don't mind. I could do the same thing on the follow through, and I'd have a projection in the air of my hand path. We hold both of those for seconds. And I can tell you that this hand path in the air, the trajectory that it goes around my spine, I had no idea first where it was. And then when one of them got off a little bit, when one of them got off a little bit, that would produce a different kind of a shot than I expected. So, you know, we do a lot of practice moving the hands in an arc around the body. We're learning when they go to the right, what kind of shot that produces. When they go to the left, what kind of shot that produces. Maybe you want to hit a fade, or maybe you want to hit a draw. You learn how those are manipulated and how the ball position has to be adjusted in this shift. So, visual reference system in the air to be able to know where to go. Then as part of that system, to make it a model for a shot, I'm going to add a couple sticks here And as I add a couple of sticks, I have to explain what each one of them is. I say it the same way every time to build up the redundancy. Golf is an angle projected onto the ground as an arc for the club and hands. And I already told you that the center of the arc is the shoulder, the arm, the shaft, and the radius that comes from the center. I put the center line onto the ground. This would be the center of the arc. The center, the radius, underneath the shoulder projected onto the ground. So if I had the butt of the club, the leading edge, and the shoulder all lined up, which I don't, but if I did, if you guys walk over here for just a second. If I lined up with the ball right underneath the shoulder and the butt of the club in line, with the butt of the club, shoulder, butt of the club, and the leading edge in line would look like this. Just to acquaint you with the diagram. Then, the next step, in modeling a shot, I would put the ball into the equation, to the diagram. So if I put the ball, say 3 balls behind the center, 3 balls behind the center line, said differently, 3 balls back on the arc. Notice I didn't move it straight back. 3 balls back on the arc. If I put the ball 3 balls behind the center line, 3 balls behind the center, right? The radius would be angled to the center, right? The radius is angled. The radius is angled to the center. So if I come over here for just a second, okay. If I put the ball, there's my center line. If I put the ball 3 balls behind the center, the radius would be angled to the center line. The radius would be angled to the center line by the 3 balls. Okay? Then the angle of the radius to the center line would be the foundation of hitting down at the ball. Meaning as the radius moves towards the center line, the club will go down. As it passes the center line, will go up. Are we good with that? Down, up, somewhere correct. Downward, upward when it passes the center. Okay with that? The angle of the radius to the center as the foundation hitting downward at the ball would also project the path of the swing to the right. Meaning, if I draw a right angle, radius, a right angle from the radius. See how you see the right angle there? Draw a right angle from the radius, that would project the path of the swing to the right. So this piece of pie is this piece of pie. How are we in that? Okay, so when I put the ball behind the center, say the 3 balls, I'm preset to hit down at the ball, which would produce the path of the swing to the right. So when I set up, this is my target line. The angle of radius to the center would project the path of the swing to the right. So if the ball's behind the center line, 3 balls, the angle of the radius to the center will project the path of the swing to the right.
It's naturally not thinking about that.
Right, so I would just still be moving my hands around an arc. Moving my hands around the arc, but when the ball position's factored in, the path will be to the right of my feet line might be pointed, at the out here at the building. But when I factor in the ball position, it's actually to the right of that. So it helps see that. You guys walk around behind me here. I go to the tournament on a course and just stand right there. So I go to the tournament, I'm on a par 3. I remember this has happened a lot. I've got my camera, I'm watching. This person says, where am I aimed? Maybe that happens on the range every day. Hey, where am I aimed? You're aimed to the right. You're aimed to the left. Where am I aimed? That's a large question. There could be the alignment of a lot of things, but generally people sometimes are talking about where the stance is aimed. Maybe they're talking about where the shoulders are aimed. And in this situation, you see how my shoulders are aimed at. Can I have a stick there, Nick?
For sure.
my stance would be aimed at, say, you know, if I just held a stick there, my stance would be aimed at, say, you see the just right of the red stake in the middle of the range. Hold that. You guys see where my body's aimed there? Do you see that? So I might say, well, your stance is aimed at the red stake in the middle of the range. But when I factor in the ball back on the arc, but the ball's back on the arc, the three-dimensional path, or I have to have a term for this green stick. I don't like to say the words this or that, here or there. They're not descriptive. So I'm not going to call it this. Right. I'm not going to say here or there. So the green stick, the right angle to the radius, I'm going to call that the address plane line. And that is a projection of where the path the swing is aimed when the ball position is factored. How are we on that?
Oh, I just got a question.
Yeah.
So
So this is the guts of it. If you learn this about golf, you'll understand the geometry of the game. Okay, go ahead.
So are you saying, but when you put the club down,
Yeah,
are you putting club down where? Behind the first ball or the third ball?
the third ball.
Third ball.
So you can walk around there now.
So when you're addressing the ball, you actually have that far back behind the ball with the club
I
face.
can't stand on the stick. You know, I'd like to be right here. So it'd be like that.
3 balls back from a driver. You look at it that way, right?
Yeah, but
3 balls back
with
from the
your
shoulder.
iron, you're that far back behind the ball.
Yeah, I've got a piece of pie. And when I go to the driver, I'm going to explain how I change the ball position and why to affect the attack angle down on the driver.
So if the ball is here, let me understand. If the ball is there,
Yeah, one
would you
ball.
put one ball?
Yeah.
Would you put the actual club here, or would you?
No, I
the
put it
actual
behind the ball.
club- Yeah,
I would always
behind
hold the ball right behind.
Oh, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. That's what I was
Hold the
wondering.
club right behind the ball.
That's what I thought you were asking.
Yeah. So then,
Okay.
That quick, silly question. So which ball would you be hitting in this case? This ball or this ball?
No, this one.
Okay, gotcha.
If I have the ball 3 balls behind the center, right?
And your center to
I
the shoulder.
got it.
Shoulder.
Got it.
He's giving you a frame of reference to where to put the ball. So 3
So
balls
the
behind
ball-
the radius of where the shoulder
Of the shoulder.
is.
Ah.
Yes.
So shoulder center for him.
Yes.
Got it.
Shoulder center, your 3 balls
Shoulder
3 balls
center.
behind
So
center.
look at it this
Shoulder
way.
center. Hold
Yeah,
on.
you got a
Ball position relative to lead
Come over
foot.
here and look at this for a
Give
second.
him the ball position diagram.
Shoulders to center. Here's my golfer, right? There's the golfer. There's the axis. So the center of the swing is not the axis of the body.
It's not.
No, right?
That's a huge, huge insight.
People conflate those.
Yep.
The axis of rotation is not the center of the geometry of the arc of the swing.
Okay, can you repeat that just for this gentleman? This was, I don't know about you, it blew my mind just now.
Say that again.
Do you mind?
The
Andy?
center of the swing is not the axis of the swing's rotation. The
your
c-
spine.
Right.
Right.
The spine is the axis of rotation.
Yeah.
You know, an axis has 2 points to make an axis.
Mm.
So the 2 points would be the center of the shoulder, the center of the hips, the axis of the body, and the spine. The center of the swing, the shoulder would move in an arc itself about the axis of the back. And then the right shoulder itself would move in an arc itself. To be looking at the swing. Right. Yep.
And that, what you said that blew my mind was on the shoulder.
So I was getting ready to. When I set up, shoulder to the axis, right?
Yeah.
The center, radius are going to move in an arc around the axis. Like this. And I'm going to bend that over to the ground and do the same thing. Okay. So when I put the ball behind the center of the swing or back on the arc, say 3 balls,
Right.
I'm presetting an angle, right, of the radius to the center line, which makes me project the address plane line to the right. And this cone, formed from the target line to the address plane line, is the several industries that have sprung up out of understanding this concept. One of them is TrackMan. You know, they build a Frederick Tucson, hang around, a lot on the range. That TrackMan in 2004 1, 5, and 6, and they're using it for club fitting. And when they were using it for club fitting, they had 3 numbers: face, path, spin. And they were just fitting drivers. And Mike and I could take this diagram and show how to build a model for a driver where the face would be to the right of the target. We could build a model for a driver that said the face had to be to the right, not to the left, which is contrary to all the ball findings. And Mike would hit this 4-iron way up in the air, a big draw. And they're, probably 3/4 of the tour at one time or another. I can remember Ernie L sitting right there saying, explain that again. So a lot of people just set out at the end of the day, we'd still be on the range, a couple drift by or something, we'd end up in this conversation. Frederick Tuckson, the trackman, we'd just go down to their trackman and say, here's Mike hitting the draw, the face is 4 degrees to the right. It's not at the target. It's not certainly not left of the target, it's 4 degrees to the right.
So what is the best way if you're out there playing?
Yeah.
And you got to take that information.
Yeah.
Would you actually get the actual club?
Yeah. How do you?
Right?
Yeah.
How do you?
How do you bake all that in?
Yeah. How do you take that on the actual golf?
Yeah.
course?
Right.
Over here, it's great. You have all these sticks and everything.
So all
else.
this would be wired in. Your understanding would be wired in. So when I stand behind the ball, I come in. I put my left ankle under my shoulder. Okay. Which is setting the ball position, right? And then I put for this, I got an 8-iron, right? So when I come in to set the ball in, I line the club up, put the club behind the ball, and I'm aiming the face where I want the ball to start.
And now you step into it.
Right, then I go the 3 balls forward. Yeah. So I aim the club.
And you go 3 balls.
And then I set the radius. I line the radius up. Okay. And then I set the stance with the 3 balls. And then I configure the face, right? I configure the face, which I'm getting ready to put into the diagram.
Then you move accordingly
Yes.
to those 3
Yes.
balls position
Yes.
that you did.
Yes.
That's the first move.
Yes.
Is this.
Yes. So I come in.
Come in with your radius.
I come in with the feet, right? I set the club behind the ball. I line the radius up.
Now you go 3 balls.
Now I go to the 3 balls.
Now you set.
And then back under the right hip.
Now you set.
And then I bounce. And I aim the face to the shaft, which is what I'm getting ready to say. I show you how to aim the face. To aim the face. I set it back down. And I see the alignment. The alignment's here, it's not out there. So I've moved the alignment from 150 yards, 300 yards, to right in front of me. So I'm not thinking about the target. Well, the target is the ball in golf. And the target, the hole, the flag, the fairway is a secondary target. So this process brings the target from the fairway into the ball. And the mapping system traces you around the arc. So I'm not sitting out here looking around, going to swing at the target.
Got it. I see. You have the same positioning, the same setup every time.
Yes.
So this is more towards working the ball from right to left.
You can see
So
that.
what happens if you're going to go left?
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. Yep.
The opposite.
Yep. So I'm going to build one shot in, so I can explain one, and then I can use the same diagram to be able to model any shot.
Is there a numerical way to quantify this when you're on the GC3 or the TrackMan that the 3rd ball back would be like 6 down, the middle one would be like 4 down, the last one would be neutral, and would the path be 3 from the inside for all of them, for example? Like, how would we know?
Yeah. So how does TrackMan and GC1? What's the algorithm that Frederick Tuckson wrote into those to be able to model this? Right.
That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah. So the angle of the radius to the center is the basis for hitting down, is the basis for the attack angle. It's one part of it. I could bend my knees. I could raise the hands. There's other things that could distort the attack angle. But yes, if the angle of the radius was 5 degrees, 5 degrees to the center line, if this was 45-degree angle, then it would be 1 to 1. It would be 5 behind the center, 5 to the right.
So 5 from the inside and 5 down would be, is that what you're saying?
5 down would be 5 right.
5 right to 5 from the inside on the path.
The angle of the radius to the center is 5 degrees. The path will be 5 degrees to the right.
So at a 45-degree angle, your down and your out are the same number. 5 down equals 5 out when you're looking at your numbers.
I'll explain how to build onto that because there's a few technicalities, a little bit more math involved in it. But for playing golf, not writing down all the calculations, you can sum it into this very neatly and then build on more detailed math to it. And I think that may be your question: what would be the add-ons? Which I'll go over. I could spend a day doing answering that question. I'd just say,
I guess the question also that the tour players, their driver could be neutral or one up. But
So-
when you optimize on TrackMan, it's like 3 to 5. So
yeah. So just on the phone last night, the guy on the Live tour, Charles Howell on the phone. Right, Charles has led the tour and the ball's in the right rough a number of years on the tour. He has trouble hitting the ball, drawing the ball, and everyone tells him he has too much shaft, right? And he hits down too much because of the shaft, because of the built-in attacking. But when I come through, if my handle is rising, right, if the club is going upward through the ball, I wouldn't be hitting down 5 degrees. Yes, if my handle is going up, the club would still be going down. I'd still have the 5 from the radius, but my handle is going up at the same time. That's the essence of the swing. The handle is going up while the club is going down. So when I come through the ball, get ahead of myself. But when I come through the ball, right, the club is going upward, there's a rise. And that rise would negate the downward effect to the ground of the angle of the radius. The club would go up, so if the rise is greater than the angle of the radius to the center, I'd be hitting up at the ball. But I would still have the 5-degree outward path. The 5-degree outward path from the angle. So Charles said, well, everybody says that's too much shaft. I said, Charles, you have none. You have none. And I would ask you, with the radius in line with the center, no back on the dog, no angle of the radius to the center, where your outward path is to hit the draw. How are you swinging out? He said, oh. He said, so I'm having to swing way out to the right like this to try to get any right path. Yes, you are. But with the angle of the radius to the center, you can hit higher on the face, and you can hit a draw without swinging to the right. But you asked the question, and that would be my answer. And you can see how there would be other parts that, when I swing back, essentially what I'm going to do is I've got the 3 balls behind the center. I'm just going to transport that around the arc. I'm not going to throw that out. You have a question about that? Okay.
what did you advise him to fix that then? What would be operational?
I'm going to show you when we practice his driver. I told him if he wanted to hit the draw, to draw it more, he needed more shaft length first to get the rightward pass.
So is that hands forward?
Hands forward. And then the next part of this diagram is putting the club face into it. To be able to model a shot. I'm almost there. Almost got it. So your question is about driving time. So when I put the club face into the diagram, I have to explain the construction of the club. Because of the offset and lock, meaning the face is closed to the angle of the shaft. So, most people aim by looking at the leading edge, but it's really the center of the club that's the direction. Most people look at this. And I'm making the point that the face is closed to the shaft because of the hook face. Because of the hook face and its design. Face and the design, when I put the club face into this diagram, all 3 of these things could be true at once. See how the center of the see how the leading edge is to the right of the target. Right? At the same time, the leading edge will be square to the radius, yes. But the club face itself, if you stand up to this, see how the club face is closed. See how the club face is closed to the shaft. stand right over top of this. See the sliver of grass there? The leading it with the toggle and the hose. That's the club shell. The base is closed to the radius. Not open to the radius. Closed to the radius because of the hook base. Because of the hook base in its design. See that?
Saw that.
See that?
The old larger stuff today.
They are. So,
I thought with the people, they kind of changed the action.
well, there's a lot of playing jimmying around with that. Guys are playing around with this effect all the time. Mike Beer was always a guy who cut the ball, you know, and he's always afraid of like weak slices. He plays with gooseneck clubs. He has his club or hook face. He builds like significantly more hook face than he's supposed to anybody on the tour that I know of. And then, you know, there's other guys who are trying to negate that effect. They're trying to get the offset out of there. So I would just say people pick up the glove and they deal with it, whatever it is. Whether people use it. I'm just having to explain it. The reason why I explain it is because it's going to unlock huge visual lessons and help organize the game. So the club face there will be open to the target, closed by the amount of hook face and the design of the rest plane. So the base will be open to the target, to the right of the target, but closed to the shaft. Open to the target, closed to the radius, or closed to the shaft. By the hook face on the design. How we doing that? Now, the geometry that governs the game will dictate that the ball start line is controlled by the face of the orientation to the target. So if I step one step back, if I have the face open, I hit the ball starts to the right. So why does the ball start to the right? Face is open to the target. And if the face is close to the target, I hit the ball. Right? Ball starts to the left. Why does the ball start to the right, Nick?
The face is open to the radius.
Face, hold it.
Pointed to the right of the radius.
To the target, Nick. Why does the ball start to the right of the target line?
The face is pointed to the right of the target line.
Okay, very good. Sorry. Maybe I want to make sure that was.
Mm-hmm.
So the start direction is the angle of the face to the target. The curve is the face's relationship to the radius. I think a lot of people have a general idea that they're going to try to aim the club at the target. But they have no idea of how the face is configured to the radius. So if I set up and if the face is open to the radius, if the club is open to the radius like this, see how it's open to the radius, which will be the longitudinal axis. Face is open to the radius, right? Right, see the face open to the radius. And I swing and hit the ball with the face open to the radius. That would tilt the spin of the ball to the right, ball curve to the right. So Nick, why is the ball curve to the right?
Face is open to the radius.
Very good. See how fast that is. It needs to be that fast. You hit a ball, face is open, curve to the right, face is open. If the face will close to the radius, you see how I'm closing it. See I'm just twisting the club. Right? The face is close to the radius, and I can hit the ball close to the face. That would tilt the spin of the ball to the left, ball curve to the right. So I'm using the face to the radius as a frame of reference because it's one point in time. I didn't say face to the path. Some people, when I say why does the ball curve to the right, they say the face is open to the path.
Target.
Well, that would be the start line, right?
This is where we get in trouble because we go at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Which causes low point problems.
11 o'clock.
The more I swing to the right, what's that do to the low point? It's fat, thin.
More hook.
Yes. Big cone. Big cone. So, if the face was open to the radius, see how I'm opening it. Ready? Just watch the golf club. See how I'm twisting it. If I have the best intentions, maybe I set up with the built-in draw, and I swing back, and I'm going to try to transport that draw around the arc. and I swing back and I don't realize it, but I'm pushing the club over. I can learn to do that on camera, because that open club phase, club will be visible behind the shell. That would be called open. Okay. And if the face is closed to the shaft, maybe I swung back and realize it, and I'm pushing it closed. The face is closed, the shaft would be visible inside the shaft. So I could learn to see on camera whether the face is open or closed to the shaft. I can see the same thing on floor. I can see if the face is closed to the shaft. I could learn to track that through the swing, see how the club should be oriented. I can learn to visualize what it would look like for the leading edge. I'm looking at the leading edge. For the leading edge to be flush, see the kind of space there on the leading edge. For the leading edge to be flush with the radius. You see the hook face there. See the hook face right there. So the loft is closed. So the leading edge is straight, but there's a slightly closed face because of the plug. So when I swing back, you see I can just barely see the face over the top of the head. Barely see the face. I'm open as it's closed.
You still gotta have the feel.
Well, that's the point, right? That's the point. That's the whole point. The whole point. So I was just saying the best players have a way of swinging out of stick. They can learn to feel when the club is squared to the radius. They can feel the balance of the club. When the club is open, the mass is to the right of the axis. Mass of the club is to the right of the axis. They can learn to sense that. And if it was closed, it would be to the left of the axis. Closed to the. They could learn to sense through the swing when it was open or closed. And if it got a little open, well, shoot, this thing's open, I gotta close it. They would know how to stabilize the airplane in the air and close it back up. The poor player who opens it a little bit has no sensation. The thing stays open, goes to the right.
Just a slipstream with that thought, Andy. Is it possible though? And this might be a self-diagnosis here, but is it possible that a novice golfer can sense it, and that's why they overcompensate in some way?
It is. You know, maybe they can't articulate it, but they feel this thing goes on the right. I usually hit it to the right. I'm going to slam it over. But the point is the way they try to close it, the way they try to close the club face to the radius. Okay, is by rolling the wrist, which doesn't close the face to the radius. See how that's not closing the face? Right? Don't miss this part. See how this is not pronating and supinating. Roll of my forearms is not closing the face to the shaft. Right? Not to the radius. It's funny how that. Let me grab there's something in my thing. So the club, what closes the face would be the twist. Shaft. Now, since we understand the loft light balls, we got a model design here. The model says the ball should start to the right and curve to the left. It should start to the right because the face is to the right. It should curve to the left because the face is close to the radius. So I should be able to simulate that. I should be able to, you guys stand over here now. I should be able to put the ball behind the center. Say 3 balls. Line the radius up. To your question about how you do this on the board, you should be able to put the ball behind the center. Line the radius up. Set my stance. Configure the club face open to the target. They look open to the target to you guys. Just to the right of the target. Open to the target. Open to perpendicular. You guys perpendicular to me at the table. But if I'm standing over here along the line of the radius, you guys just walk over here for a second. You see how the face is closed, closed to the radius at the same time. So there's 2 frames of reference there. Open to the target, closed to the radius. So I should be able to transport that closed club face halfway back and halfway through. Meaning I should be able to put the ball behind the center, line the radius up, configure the face open to the target, close to the shaft, transport the draw around the arc, and you see how the ball curved to the left. So I'm not releasing the club or rolling it.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, grab a hand.
So the big language shift for me, can't speak for these guys,
Yeah, please.
is the reference of the club face to the radius. And that radius gets you into playing over here rather than playing out there.
Yes. Close the face. That's what you're closing the face to.
Is the radius.
But you know that intellectually. You don't actually feel that.
Oh, I do.
You feel that.
Oh, I feel it, and I rehearse it every day in my mind. I visualize it every time and space of the swing. I picture exactly how that looks. Okay, so I learn the feeling of keeping it. Then I've got a few mechanisms in the way you set your elbows and wrists up to code that to ensure that that happens, and to be able to tell the difference when it doesn't, so that I can say, I've got the built-in draw. Here's the mechanics that open the face. Here's the way I could differentiate. When I can differentiate between yes and no, I can acquire feel between yes and no, right? When I can measure the difference in my mind's eye. So I go ball behind the center, line the radius up, configure the face, open to the target, close to the shaft, transport the ball around the arc. You see how that one curved a little less than the last one? That the other one was a little bit more curved. Did you notice?
Yeah.
So if I do that, I saw it while I was doing the demonstration. I knew that why did the ball have a little more curve? Ace was a little bit more closed than the diagram. Curved a little bit more than my plan than the diagram would suggest. So when I practiced that one, I did the same exercise, but in my swing, to your point, could I feel that? Yes, I could. I saw it by the outcome. I nudged the face a little bit open to take out some of the draw, so I kind of stood the draw up and it didn't overcurve.
In the swing or before the swing?
I did that during the swing. Okay, and that can be an easy cue. There'd be a coding.
He's got the path engraved.
In his
Yeah.
brain.
So
Yeah.
he knows exactly
I know exactly where that thing is.
without turning the hands.
Yes, yes.
Same swing.
So now I can do the same thing again. Ball behind the center, line the radius up. Configure the face open to the target, close to the shaft. Transport the draw around the arc. You see how now the ball's always curving to the left. That's a little bit more than standard. Okay. What's the chances, Nick, of that demonstration going to the right, curving to the right?
0.
It never curves to the right. Okay, so that's a simple model with a closed club face to the radius, moving arc. Easy to replicate. There's no chance the ball curves to the right. What's interesting about that is I got the first fundamental contact on lockdown, the third fundamental of predictable curve on lockdown, and I've got, in the distance, the second fundamental, I hit that last ball 100 yards. I can hit this 150. So I got 2/3 of the distance. So I got all of 1, all of 3, and half of 2. So I'm a long way towards being a pretty good player there. So this would serve as a default place to go back to when I have trouble, because it's a known outcome. And for a beginner, it's a place to start and build up from. For the expert player, it's a default. And then a person will say, well, why don't you play that way? Well, you're only hitting it 100 yards. I need some more angular momentum. I need some more speed to be able to play with. How's that speed built up? From the 100-yard shot to the 150-yard shot. Well, there, on that part, I swung about as easy as I could there. The energy into the system was a 2. I swung about as easy as I could with all the parts. This time I'm going to swing like an 8 out of 10, so I'm going to speed up all the segments. I'm not going to go back farther. Before I go back farther, I'm going to speed all the segments up to the maximum. So I'm going to do the same procedure, ball behind the center, line the radius up, configure the face, open to the target, close to the shaft, transport the draw around the arc. Okay, now I can start getting, see if I can get it out to that, bounce up to the front of that green there, okay? Touch of a pull draw, no chance curving to the right, might overcurve a little to the left, you can see that. Right's out. So there's no balls to the right of the address plane line every time the face is in here. Okay with that? And I got all I could out of that. One more time, I'll go right up against it. Ball behind the center, line the radius up, configure the face open to the target close to the shaft. Transport the draw. See, I took the curve off that one as opposed to the last one. That's why I wanted to hit another one. But
How are you doing that? How are you doing that with your,
Yeah.
like in the middle of the swing? Yeah.
yeah, so I know that twist. It's further on in the talk, but to answer your question, what closes the face? Right. Well, that would be additive palm twist on the club. Right. So when I swung back, I made sure I kept my wrist, the flex in my wrist the same, as opposed to twisting it. I did that both on the backswing and the follow through. I kept the twist. I learned how to picture my wrist
So
and
if you
face.
feel you're a little bit like that, you just
Yeah.
See, I'm a field player,
Yeah.
and I kind of feel like shots, but obviously, you know, you get in trouble by doing that because you don't always.
Well, I'd say that, to your point, I say we're all field players at the end of the day. It's just how good is your field. And so the question there was, what's the feeling for subtracting the overdraw without slicing?
That's why
But I
sometimes
feel, you feel this as opposed to the club face.
Yeah.
But this I definitely could feel.
The palmar flex. Yep. Flex towards the palm.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Palmar flex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus the dorsey.
Right.
Right. When I set up, I have a dorsey. Right. See the cup of my wrist. When I swing back, I need to keep the dorsey. I need to keep the dorsey on the finish. If I close the face, then I'd be going, which is what I'm doing on a couple of those. It's frankly insurance when I'm hitting the dorsey is insurance that the ball curves to the back. The first one I hit, I'm not going to sit here and slice it.
So with the initial radius, you have a little bit of that.
In my grip, I line the radius up. I turn the hand where it's along the line of the radius. And when I do that, the hands turn, and it's not straight up and down from the ground. It's lower, perpendicular. There's a dorsey flex in the grip. So it's not like flat. If it was a flat grip, it wouldn't be very mobile. Couldn't get any angular momentum out of the wrist.
You'd be more normal.
Well, yeah, so, chipping, I might do something like that because I don't need any distance. I probably wouldn't. But you see guys in chipping, they'll weaken their grip and, go like this with the shaft real high. Putter grip like this to take out all the additive speed so they get more touch.
So the motorcycle move that you're avoiding,
Yeah.
sometimes they advocate using that for speed, getting some speed. Are you suggesting not?
There's not much speed there.
No.
There's not much speed there. What they should be talking about, what I think they're talking about, that's a guy reading graphs, 3D graphs. And, what they're getting there is the face close, so they're getting dynamic law. So they're getting ball speed, not club head speed. Not reducing the dynamic law.
So the smash factor goes up.
Right. And then if I've got the face closed like this 10, I close the face from the 2-degree built-in draw, say I close it to 10. And then a lot of guys will try to take that 10 out by swinging to the right.
Yes.
They'll see the ball pull hooking, and then they'll try to pull hooking with the 10. And then to correct that, Jasper Parnovic's holding the 10 closed. And then to correct that, right, he's sitting here like this, he would try to swing out to the right and open the face. But he wasn't swinging out, opening the face to the shaft. He was still close to the shaft. So the more he swung out to the right with the twist, it would just curve more. That would look like this, right?
Isn't that what drove you out of tour golf?
It is. That shot right there.
Wouldn't the low point keep coming further back then as you start trying to come more from the inside?
So if I put the ball 6 balls back to demonstrate the effect, if I put the ball 6 balls back, the address plane line is to the right, and I'd have a 6-degree attack angle built in. So I could even open the face and still draw it, make a bigger cone. But to not hit 6 degrees down, answer your question, to not hit 6 degrees down with the fall farther back on the arc, I would have to have more rise on the shaft. So I'd have to have more extension in my body to come up faster, get more rise to not hit smash into the ground on the back ball position. So when I put the ball back like this, how do I not hit down? So I have more extension and more rise. That would look like this. See if you can see it. See how the ball starts out to the right, curves to the left, and my body's helping me pull this club up. That was a flat divot with the ball back. It wasn't a steep attack angle. It wasn't way into the ground.
So what you were doing before, would that create a one-way miss because everything you're doing is going to come back to the left?
That's the point. That's the point. So I've got a one-way miss. It's over eliminating the balls to the right. And then I've got a control system in my head on the wrist. You know, it's always closed. But I've also got a control system on the club face. If it gets too close, how to nudge it back over there to square. How are we on that grid? Okay? The idea?
Got it all.
Okay. If you've got the idea of it,
The idea, now we got to do it.
yeah. So that's the point, right? Now, first know what to do, what to try to do. Transport the draw around the arc. That's a predictive model. It tells you what should
And
happen.
that goes with every club in your hand.
The same
Whether
logic
it's
applies.
driver, whatever it is, same setup, same.
It's the same system. But if I
You
wanted,
don't shut the face on a driver like you're doing with your irons.
oh yeah,
You do.
oh yeah. So that's the same question with the same guy Charles out in the morning. He was slicing the ball over there and played good all year. He started slicing the ball over there. David was helping him. My friend David hasn't seen him in 4 months because he's been playing so good. He goes over there and starts slicing. He's slicing. Why is the ball sliced? Well, I close the face. So he moves the hands back and closes the face like this. Wait a minute. Charles closing the face with the hands back. The path is to the left. So you need to have the path right and the face left to hit that draw, right? So if I want to model a cut to your point, if I put the ball forward, the right angle would be to the left. Yes?
Yeah.
And if I just kept the face the same, if I put the ball forward on the arc, yeah, and then took the double pendulum, the radius, and took the second segment of it, the club, let's say I put the handle back, put the ball forward, and then I put the handle back. See how from the shaft, from the arm to the shaft, that's an additive path to the left. So I put the ball forward and the handle back. Now I'm going, this is to the left. My face is straight now, right?
Yeah.
But you see how open it is to
Yeah.
the shaft. See how open it is to the shaft. Wow. So if I hit a ball like that, ready? Put the shaft back and the face straight. If I hit a ball like that, the ball would start straight and curve to the right. That's an epidemic of opening the path to the left, and opening the face, not keeping it twisted. Okay? So you can see how I can model a cut. But if I want to model a cut, where do I want the ball to start?
Start on the left.
To the left. So would the face be open to the target or close to the target?
It'll be open.
Hold on. If I want to start the ball to the left,
Or it'll be close.
it'll be closed.
Yeah.
So I put the face to the left on those cuts. It has to be to the left. It can't be to the right. Push cut. So if I want to hit a cut, I just put the ball forward, close the face, right? Like this. And I can start pulling the ball. That's straight. I'd call that straight.
That's not a cut.
So that's a pull as opposed to a push. Close it a little bit too much, you get it started to the left. So I put the ball forward, close the face to the shaft, to the target, but now it's still open to the shaft. I get through right, and I can start inducing make the ball start to curve to the right. Did you see the curve to the right? Did you see it? The curve to the right.
I saw it.
Now, in terms of distance,
Yeah.
when you have the handle back, face open to the radius, you're not getting anywhere near the same compression as you would
I
otherwise.
could swing 100 mile an hour in both.
Yeah.
And with the face closed and the dynamic off less, I could hit with 100 mile an hour 7-iron. I could hit it, 180, 90 yards.
Yes.
7-iron. But if the dynamic, I could swing 100 mile an hour with the face open and hit it 140 yards.
Sure.
So it's a big difference. The smash is a big difference. There's no smash when the face is laid down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got the idea that by the handle position, the ball position, and the face angle to the radius. You could use this diagram to manufacture any shot and to explain it, the impact conditions of any shot. How are we on that? Okay, how to do that? I'm going to take about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Just explain the generalities of the swing, and we hit. Let's start with the feet. Say turn the feet out. See how my feet are turned out? Knees are turned out. That would be externally rotating the feet. So the feet are turned out, hips are turned out, hips are externally rotated. They're not internal. And one of the engineering concerns of the swing is how to turn the pelvis, the whole hip girdle 90 degrees. About a lead leg where the ankle's on the ground. Lead knee doesn't rotate, right? It's flexion extension. So by having my foot externally rotated, you see the seam of my pants, you see a part of that external rotation is helping me turn through the ball. So if you look at the seam of my pants, you see how it's turned outward. And then when I come through, there's a little bit of additive, not a lot, but a little bit, you see how that seam turns a little bit. There's a little bit of additive external rotation of the lead foot. So when I come through, if you just watch the seam of my pants, see how that turns. And on the trail hip, there's a complementary internal rotation on the trail hip. So if you watch the trail hip, you see how I can turn the hip, not moving the lead hip, not moving the lead hip. See how I can turn the hip from the internal rotation of the trail hip as well. So to learn how to turn through the ball, part of that is the internal and external rotation of the hips. Okay with that? And then the knees themselves, when you swing back and flex, left would flex, right would straighten. That would turn the hips on a tilt. So the knee flex, the flexion extension joints, the lead leg extends, the trail flexes, the hips turn on a tilt. Okay? That tilt is towards the lead side. Right? It's not tilted to the right. If it was a right tilt, where would I hit? Out. Swing to the right, where would that move the low point? On the ball. So you can see all these parts are going to have a direct impact on the flight of the ball. And if I was going to swing to the right, where would I play the ball? Forward or back? Back. So as I work my way up from the feet to the knees, to the hips turning in a tilt, I move my hands in an arc around the axis. Remember? Lost Nick there for a second, right? Okay, so see the spine is the axis, the center and the radius move in an arc around the axis. Standing straight up and down, that's pure rotation. It's only turn. Just rotating. But I don't play standing straight up. I have a forward tilt. Remember, golf's played on a tilted angle. I have a forward tilt. And when I swing back and I have a forward tilt, impose a forward tilt on my spine. If I keep the same forward tilt and I only rotate, keeping the forward tilt the same, my head would be pulled back by the turn. See, I'm only turning, keeping the forward bend the same. So what I'm saying there is the turn is the force, keeping the forward bend the same. The turn is the force that's pulling the head in the direction that it's turning. And if I come through and keep the forward bend the same, I only turn, the head will go forward. So you know that's the high handicapper. You're handing the club, and they go back with the club, and they go through with the club. They're going in the same direction as the club is moving. There's no one who's ever played who's kept the same forward bend when they swing. It's kept the same spine angle. It doesn't happen. Every player, when they swing back, extends out of the forward tilt. That active extension helps the club to come off the ground. It's the first thing in order that gives the ascent to the club. And in its absence, like a wood chopper, right? Vertical wood chopper. If that extension doesn't happen, to get the club to come off the ground, I bend my elbow and wrist, which changes the radius. Very common. So you can go back like that, swinging back. They didn't extend in the backswing. Power of the club. Why it's hard to understand is if you'll just grab this, grab that loose stick. It's hard for people to understand that extension. This right here. Because when I swing back, I was just describing how I extend out of this forward tilt. And it's hard for people to see because if I swing back, you see how I didn't raise up. The person might say, well, I don't see the extension that you're talking about. But if I stay back into the forward, stay in the forward tilt going back, the extension I'm talking about would be like this. And then when I come through, if I stay in the forward tilt this way, to our conversation about your swing coming through, when you're demonstrating your swing and you get fatigued at the end and you start moving the head forward, that would be the turn is more powerful than the extension. You're not extending through the ball anymore. So meaning if I stayed bent over forward, the extension I'm talking about would be that way coming through the ball. This would be flexion, this would be extension. Yeah, so you're doing great there. You see how you didn't move forward. So my point is there's an up and down in the swing. There's a flexion and an extension. And as I was saying, that extension is equalized in the leg, hip, and progressively up the spine. If I just do my knee flex and extend it, I hurt my back. So I've got to equalize the amount that I do in all the segments. Now, so when I swing back, I turn. The reason why I don't raise up so I extend when I swing back. And the reason why I don't raise up as I'm extending is at the same time I'm extending out of the forward tilt, I'd be progressively transferring into a lateral tilt, a side tilt, that is in the opposite direction of the turn. So the turn would be pulling me back, and the side tilt would be pulling me forward. And those two forces would be balanced to stay centered. So if the turn's too fast, I go back. If the extension's too fast, I go up. If the side tilt's too fast, I go forward. And I want to balance all those three movements: flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation. All those three forces to stay centered. That's the hypothesis of the book. First, to define the terms. All movement is measured in three planes: up and down like a whale, flexion, extension, lateral flexion like a shark, rotation, in and out. So up and down, side to side, in and out. Three pairs sets of movements. And they say measured in 3D on those forms. That's what they're talking about. They're measuring all three of those planes of motion. So up and down, flexion, extension, side to side, in and out. That's how movement is measured and how people move. Where the lateral flexion is concerned, the lateral flexion is always opposite side of the turn. So I tilt left, I turn right. And when I come down on the downswing, I tilt right, turn left. They're always equal, they're always opposite. That's basic biomechanics. It's called the coupling of the spine. And it's not a stack and tilt thing, although somehow it became a stack and tilt thing because when people describe the swing, they would just define the turn. 2 turns in a swish. But if you took that advice literally, which a lot of people do, they go like this. And they're not extending and tilting. So you want to blend all three of those movements together. And what tells you how to blend them together is the desire from the front to create a stable, what blends those three movements together. So a real swing setup would extend out of the forward tilt, trail leg, the left legs, trail knee would extend, that would turn the hips into tilt. Yeah, and the golfer would extend out of the forward tilt. They would extend out of the forward tilt. And the reason why they didn't raise up is because they'd be tilting to the left. And the tilt to the left should be equal to the amount they extend. Right. Equalizer, right. So you're trying to equalize the whole time for the purpose of keeping a stable axis in the frontal plane and a stable inclination down the line. So I'm progressively bending the left tilt on backstroke and a right tilt on the follow through. So a left tilt on the backswing. So I just showed you briefly how to see too much, not enough extension, right? I could judge not enough extension by the head being pulled back. I could judge too much extension by the head being raised up. And I was just saying how to see the tilt, the side tilt. That's tricky for people as well. If you look at the placket in the shirt, you stand right here for a second. Stand right here. Side tilt is viewed in the frontal plane. You see how I'm saying 5 degrees to the right because my right arm is tilted below the left. And you see how with the right arm below the left, I have a slight tilt in the placket of my shirt. So it's to the right. When I swing back, you see how that's not tilted to the right anymore. You see how that's tilted to the left. And that side tilt is what's pushing my head forward while the turn is pulling it back. So I have those opposite forces acting against each other, stabilizing. So.
When you say as you go back, you're tilting forward. Are you putting more
No, I said side tilt.
Side tilt. So when you do the side tilt, are you loading more pressure on the foot?
Yeah.
And then when you do the opposite on the downswing, how do you keep that pressure on the foot? What's the thought there?
Swaying my hip girdle towards the target to move the weight to the left. And then when I've completed the sway, put the weight on the left, continuing to keep the hip forward. As I turn, it will become extension coming through the ball that pushes the hips forward. So I move my hip forward, slide it, and then I extend it coming through.
Are you progressively loading the left foot the whole swing?
Yeah. Yes, hold this right here. Okay. I haven't talked about the hips yet.
And Andy, from time to time, you're okay if we took pictures?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So if I've got if this is the midline, okay, the tailbone, and let me step back here. And I swing through. Watch when I swing back. Ready? See how my tailbone moves forward.
Yes.
My right hip moves to the midline. Yes.
Yes.
And then when I come through, you see how my whole hip is always in front of that line. So here I go. Ready? So I'm in front of that. I would never be back like this and turning around my back foot. Or I wouldn't be centered and going back through the ball, which is very common. So I'd be extending my hips to stay in front, to keep the weight in front.
You stay within that dive.
Yeah, right. And but
You're not coming out of it.
no, right. But and to the midline, the center of my pelvis. Right. Remember my lower center here. Right. I pull my right hip in line with it. I change my knee flex. Pull my right hip back. Put the weight on the left. What I'm doing when I do that, when I change the knee flex, pull my right hip to the midline. These are my hips, left hip, right hip, center of the hips. The pivot, the point that I'm turning around, the center of rotation of the hips. If I move them back, if I move the center of rotation back, I couldn't turn my hip very far. And if I turned around that point coming through, I'd be coming across the ball. So that would look like this. So you see how the point that I'm turning around is behind where the ball is, so I'd be going across the ball. The opposite would be if I put the pivot forward, straighten the trail leg, I put the pivot forward, straighten the trail leg, pull the right hip to the midline, okay, and then rotate it around that point coming through. That would look like this, which is what I'm just prescribing. So that would look like this. Stable upper center by doing the extending, tilting, and turning. Translating lower center, moving the hip forward to set up a point of wrench application, a bolt to twist around, and rotating around that point coming through. So I would set up and I'd change my knee flex, move my right hip to the midline. You see how I'm moving my tailbone to the 0 line, ready? See how it's over top of the 0 line. Come over here and do the same thing. Walk around here for a second. the stick. Put the stick there. There we go. So I move my tailbone. This is the yellow stick is the 0 line, right? When I swing back, I move my tailbone to the 0 line. So it's over the 0 line. And I'm setting the bolt up on the left to rotate. So here I go. I'm gonna right up to the midline, tailbone to the 0 line. And I come through. So the tip's always in front of that stick.
What's a good drill for that?
Standing on one foot's a good place to start. Setting the bolt at the setup is a good place to start. The shifting of the center of rotation of the hips, shifting at that point of turn, no stabilization to rotate around. That's one of the most complicated, erratic things. They don't really have to do base to rotate around.
There's a lot of movement.
Yeah,
A lot of
right.
swaving.
Like this.
A lot of swaving.
And then the bolt, when they try to turn, quote unquote, and they rotate, quote unquote, a lot of them, when they rotate, will pull the left hip, pull the pivot back. Meaning they'll go this way.
So Andy, is it fair, like, as I'm unpacking it for myself,
Yeah.
is that with that drill for a right-hand golfer, with all of that load there, that really does center with your true center, that shoulder.
Of course, yeah. So come and look at this for a second, then we'll start hitting, okay? Sure. I don't want to take all day talking, because, I could do it. You can see this could go into, this day is really designed for us to practice and you learn the system. And the other parts will start coming through, but I wanted to see this driver for a second. Hopefully.
It is a new logic.
So there's the driver. So you can see the weight on the left. You can see when he swings back. See how the bolt is on the left. Straight. And then when he comes down, you can see the hips are still forward, the weight's on the left. When it comes through, watch how his hips keep pushing and extending like that.
Balance.
Yeah.
Well, strong.
You
Just
don't
grounded.
lose any energy at all.
Well, because that, to me, again, as I just said, sorry, Andy,
Yeah, please.
but right there, like right here, that's the true center. And for me, I feel like my center's always been over here, but it's off, and that's why my
So there's
weight's moving
multiple
around.
centers.
Multiple centers.
There's the axis of rotation, which some people think of as the center, and there's the center of the arms. So when I move the right hip to the, I move the hip to the pivot to the front, pivot to the front. See, I can turn the right hip 4 degrees. And I'm straighten put the weight on the left. Straighten the leg. I can pull the right hip 4 degrees. Far out. Move it 4 degrees around a more forward point. The lever arm's wrong. And I had to pivot back like this. See, the lever arm's really small. I can't turn very hard when the weight's in there. And then if I keep the weight back, all I really have is this spin through the ball like this. I didn't get much on the back.
That's what gets us in trouble.
Yes. So the weight back, pivoting around the back foot would make a person swing cross, which would throw them into, come over here for a second, throw them into this bucket of shots.
Yeah.
Right, weight back, coming across, throw them into pulls and deflected slices.
So you're saying that there isn't even a chance the player's got to correct it. They're off radius.
Yeah, I mean they're the center of the
They have to
rotation.
rely on their hand and eye
Well,
coordination
yeah, or-
just to get off the tee.
To try and
Yeah.
correct it, but that's not. There's no correcting it.
No,
That's
there
why
isn't.
that-
It goes here or
It
there.
doesn't work.
Do you ever recommend people, if they're really struggling, actually play on one foot?
All
Like
the
just
time.
like even play the round on one
Troy
foot?
Madison,
You'd probably be better
you know,
off.
Troy Madison, we went over this with Troy. He was struggling there for a while, middle of the year, a few years back. Slicing, cutting and slicing. Went over this diagram, it's bold and so I said, why don't I just play all of it? So I came out the next day, it was the end of the day, we got out there. He said, watch this. I'm just gonna put it all on the left, hit it. He said, I'm hitting it good, I'm drawing them all. Yeah. Since I'm just gonna play like that, okay. And so there's a bunch of videos too. And
2010.
Yeah.
We were at Disney together with
Yeah, that's
Troy.
right, at the end of
Most
the year.
of those videos
That's
are
right.
mine.
Yeah, Nick's got some great videos online.
Troy
of
was
that.
talking about how he thought his tee shots were bowling. He
Bowling.
wanted to bowl, like, and hit it this high in the air, and he hit it
You know,
330,
puts the weight on
340.
the front, right? Bowl it like this.
Yeah, called it bowling. Maybe this high and hit it the longest in the field.
Came down the ramp, went.
So can you ever have too much pressure in the lead foot?
I just think it should be, if I've got a bowl, it should be on the left. And, you know, obviously it has to be calibrated with the ball position. So if you have the ball position in the right place, I'd say the weight should be on the left. And then I would say that I could judge too much sway. How would I know what too much sway is? Okay, well, too much sway would be create too much side tilt, which would make my head drop like this. So if I move my hip knows how far forward to go, how far forward to move, how much weight is governed by when I set up. If I have a, say I have a, say I have a 20-degree angle here in my lumbar to vertical, right? You know, by the time we finish, I said you would extend out of the forward tilt. So I would need a complementary 20-degree tilt to the right and my lumbar to transfer into. How are we on that? Do you understand that? So my hips know how far forward to go because it should be equal. My hips need to move forward the amount that I'm bent over at the setup. So if this is 20 degrees, I would move my hip forward to create 20 degrees of side tilt to the right on the lumbar. So when I finish, you see how when I finish, you see how I'm still in the same angle to the ground. Like that.
But it's
Remember how we
not
said
too
everything
far.
moves in equal
So
amounts.
if I had the sway too much, past the 20 degrees, right, past the 20 degrees, like this, then my side tilt would get too great, and when I'm coming through, my head would be too low to the ground.
Is that a case where now the weight has gone outside of the left foot?
Maybe if I move my head forward and I do that, then yes. If I keep my weight, if I move my hip forward like this and move my head back, then they would be, the weight would be in the same place, but I'd have a lot of tilt because one went forward and one went back. The overall center of mass might be in the same place, right? This way versus this way, they're in the same place, but one's tilted more.
What about the shoulder turn?
Yep. So I'm glad you mentioned it. Is I worked my way all the way up to this point. We talked about the extending, tilting, now the turning. And I would explain the turning. I would start to incorporate the turning into the model from the shoulders first to explain it. Because they're the most mobile joint. It's not affixed to the skeleton. The ball and socket joint is not affixed to the skeleton. It floats around in the muscle. So it's the most mobile. And its movements could be subdivided into several smaller movements. One of them would be if you hold your right arm out parallel to the ground, perpendicular to your spine. Call that position 1. 45, 2, parallel 3. 1, 2, 3. So that would be an abduction. So 1, 2, 3. And that will be facilitated by a shoulder retraction, pulling back of the shoulder. And this retraction, right, just pulling back of the shoulder, equates to about 30% of what people think of as shoulder turn. And I don't think a lot of people realize it. So it's like throwing a ball. You know, Tom Brady's in the pocket. He's in position 1. Setup, he goes to the top. Position 3. Baseball pitcher in a stretch. He's position 1. At the top, position 3. So it's always retracting and abducting. That's part of making the arm into a whip. So I'd say when you swing back, you change the knee flex, turn the hips on a tilt, extend tilt and turn the spine, you retract the shoulder, abduct the trail arm. If we take the lead arm, do the same code. Ready? 1 perpendicular, 2 45, 3 parallel. 1, 2, 3. So that would be a retraction and horizontal abduction of the lead. So when I finish, you see how I'm in position 3. And if I finish in position 1,
and abduction, it goes like this. 1, 2, 3. So if I hit a ball and I get my arm in position 1, the ball would be like this. Coming through, what kind of shot would I do? Well, push. Because my swing would be going to the right. I wouldn't be going around the arc. I wouldn't do too much ascent. I wouldn't be going up too fast. We'd be going up fast. We wouldn't be going around. So it'd be T and push. That I spend a lot of time having to teach people how to move their arms around the axis of the body. Where the left shoulder is concerned, that would be position 3 from the finish. A lot of them will just go like this, going through there, move their arm.
So this coming back to when you're loading it properly,
Yeah,
right? Especially with the driver that's up here, you're almost hesitating.
Yeah.
This shoulder's actually almost underneath your actual chin.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Right?
That's the side tilt. Right, the side tilt.
Yeah.
The side tilt is what turns the shoulder underneath the chin. Is the side tilt. So yes. And then what's moving the hands and the club around the axis. Right? Remember I said move the club. What's moving the club around the axis is A, the spinal rotation from the tilting spine, but B, the shoulder retraction from the trail shoulder. Okay? And if I take that 1, 2, 3 system, 1, 2, 3, and I build on that, and I take the left arm, the lead arm, across the chest maximum, from backswing, I can call that position 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And that would be the range of motion or the circular momentum created from the lead arm about the shoulder, the horizontal abduction, adduction. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And where the lead arm moving across the chest on the backswing would be a protracted shoulder and an adducted arm. So now I could define the backswing as extend, tilt, protract, abduct, retract, right? Extend, tilt, protract, adduct, retract, abduct. And the turning components of that would be the 1, 2, 3 of the shoulder, retraction, the 1, 2, 3 of the arm and wrist. I mean of the abduction, adduction. So that's the crank around the body. And the crank of the shoulder, the most mobile joints, where all the, well, not all, but a lot of the energy is. And so if I took the finish and just took the trail arm out again, ready? 1, do this with me. 1, trail arm. 1, 2, 3. And then the downstroke 3, 2, 1, 0. Right? So the finish would be 3, 3, 0. And that would be my arms moving around my spine. Now watch. If I swing back, I move my arms across the chest. Grab my arms. Grab it. And I come down and they stay passive. They don't go back around the axis. And the club can't move. I try to move it with my body like this. You see how I'd be tilting back. See if my arm don't move. I'd be going like this.
You have no.
Right, so I'm going to tilt back. I'm in low point's going to move back. I'm going to hit the ball to the right. So are you saying, Andy, that you can straighten out your swing path by moving your arms around you as opposed to tilting back? Yes.
So this idea that we're not supposed to include our arms in the downswing, which is many of the videos we're seeing on Instagram and in the video content
Arms are the
world.
Shoulder moves the arms.
Right.
Right. Arms. Right. Other than flexion extension of the elbow, shoulder moves the arms. Shoulder is the most mobile joint. Ball and socket. Horizontal abduction, retraction. Right. Shoulder motion. People call that arm motion.
Right.
Okay. Shoulder motion. And the shoulders are that's what gives you the big lever in the horizontal plane of the lead arm and the trail arm. Those are the big angular momentum generators.
The angle of the shoulder then on the follow through. The
That-
angle. Like
yeah.
on the backswing it's much flat.
Right,
What
so
about the follow-through?
yeah, so I skipped that just for time, but since you asked, I extended, and tilted, and went protracted and retracted. Here I am at the top, I'm in a left tilt. When I come down, I mentioned that you move your hip forward to set the wrench. And as I move my hip forward, I'm protracting and retracting my shoulders around me, yes? So if you guys stay a right angle to me, right? I'm in a left tilt. I got you here. Right, I'm in a left tilt. Walk around. Here I go, flexing. Walk around this way. Stay a right angle, right? Hold on. Get back there for a second. Just walk right over there, Nick, and just hold this right here. Stand right over there. So stay with Nick. Get right back there. You see how you're a right angle.
Staring straight at his chest.
Yeah. So here I come down. I'm in that left tilt. Here I come down. I'm flexing, tilting, turning. Flexing, tilting, turning. Flexing, tilting. Move with Nick. Flexing, tilting, turning. Flexing, tilting, turning. Flexing, tilting, turning. Flexing, tilting, turning. I will have turned my shoulders 180 degrees. You went 180 degrees around the arc. You should be standing right there. And what you'll be looking at is the right. Right? And I said that right tilt should be created not by the head going back, but by the attitude moving forward of the hips that you have to keep transferring into the side tilt coming through. So I need that side tilt to keep my inclination to the ground stable. Did I answer your question? Yep. Okay, last part. 2 minutes, 1 minute. I work my way down to the last movement of the shoulder. If you hold your arms straight out, level to the ground. 1, 45, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That'd be internal, external rotation. The external rotation in the context of the swing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Helps to move it up farther around the arc. And when I swing back, a lot of people will externally rotate a little bit and then lift up and stop externally rotating so they come over the top. So the retraction and the external rotation. That external, if I work my way down, this is the part I really want to get to, is the elbow. Work my way down to the elbow. When I set up, I can use the same 1, 2, 3 system. 1 parallel, 2 45, 3 perpendicular. 1, 2, 3. When I set up, the elbow would be in 3. So when I set up, the right elbow is in position 3, and that's positioning the shoulder joint in external rotation. 1, 2, 3. The wrist could be coded the same. 1 perpendicular. Hold your wrist out. Hold your arm out. 1 perpendicular. 2 45. 3 parallel. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's a forearm motion. Pronated and supinated motion.
You want us to 3 at a time.
1 perpendicular. 2 45. 3 parallel. And that's not a shoulder motion. Move your 1, 2, 3. That's a forearm. Real deep. From the forearm. It's a pronated and supinated. So when you set up the elbow to be 3, and your wrist would be 1.
So when would you be using this different?
You would only use 1. But it's very important. So when you set up the elbow as 3, the wrist is 1.
Right.
3, 1. So there's a preset pronation, right? There's a preset pronation in the forearm against, so the 1 is pronated against the 3. So it's externally rotated, the shoulder is, and the forearm is pronated. You can look, practically everybody on the tour does that.
It creates a little bit of a pressure twist, almost like it locks your arm into place.
Right.
And
That's the point of it.
Whereas if I'm jumping like this, but you're saying this should be.
yeah, roll it out, in and out.
Like
That's
this.
right.
Yes. So when you heard me say transport the draw around the arc, heard me say that? What I was really transporting was that 3-1 alignment, staying stable when I swung back. It wasn't jangling around and rotating my hand like this. That 3-1 was staying the same. That twist was staying locked. So when I swing back, if I put the left elbow in 2, the right elbow in 3, and I swung back, if you got, Nick, you got a stick.
Yes.
When you swing back, you can see, come and look here now. Come look close. You see the 2, the 45, and the 3. The 2 and the 3. It would not be 1-1. And then when I come through, you can see almost the 3, the 2 and the 3. See how this is facing up in the air. So I get 2, 3.
And you guys have seen like the smart ball or people with training aids that hold things together. Rather than having a tool, this is the motion, the mechanics.
So
to
this
create the
twist,
speed.
this twist, to me is one of the most important, undertaught, poorly explained parts of the swing.
That's your flex. That's when you say flex was there.
Right, like this, right? Now, when I've got the 3 and the follow through, say right there, you see how I have on the finish, I have the 3 and the 1. So if Nick points out the plug face there to the shaft, that right along the shaft, you can see how the face is closed to the shaft and the finish is
Still.
see how the face is close to the shaft. So I was just transporting that built-in 3-1 around the shaft to keep the face closed. That is huge.
That's huge. That's
got
a
all-
whole change though.
I went all the way through
Change the
that
whole
really.
downswing.
I really went through all the foundation to get down to being able to isolate that. And you see how consistent it is.
How long would that take for you to kind of?
So that should take about 15 or 20 minutes if you're not doing it. It shouldn't take very long at all. And then once you see the 3 and the 1, you see what it looks like on the camera, you see the ball draw, then you should be able to see that. And you should then be able to feel yourself transporting that 3-1 line.
And this is how you're going to get your feel from the built-in
From the
grid
system,
mechanics.
right?
That's right.
And you know, if you don't know, it could be anywhere.
Well, it also feels like your elbows are down, facing down.
Right. You're trailing, right? I think of it as, taking blood or the blood pressure position, right? Put the armpit out like this. A lot of ways to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I don't think it's very well articulated. The 1 against the 3. How the 1 against the 3. So 3-3, right? 3-3, the face of the 8. If I was 3-3.
And then
Right? If I was 3-1, see how that would close the face.
in Hogan's book, his 5 lessons have
Yeah.
the picture of the
Yeah.
twine all
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
around
yeah,
his
right.
arms, keeping them together.
Yeah.
And we've seen those training aids like the swing
Yeah.
shirt
Yeah,
that tries
yeah.
to keep the
Yeah.
arms
Well, they
close.
have the ball.
Yeah.
that you
So-
put
So a lot of
around.
people practice that.
Mhm.
So that 3 is external rotation, right? External rotation is the 3 of the shoulder. So it's preset in the external. It doesn't externally rotate in the backstroke. It's preset in the external. It just goes
That's
around.
external in both.
It is.
Pretty much.
It is. And that just goes right around the arc. It doesn't. You don't jangle
No, I get
your
it.
arms around.
Not a steering wheel.
You got to keep that.
Yeah, right. That's the idea. That's how it starts to look so simple to people, as opposed to
Wow.
Big stuff.
So
It's scary.
watch this, okay? You see the 3. You
Yeah.
guys walk over here. You see the 3. Stand right there for a second.
Yeah, you can get in the way. Go ahead. You can
Yeah.
get in the way.
See the 3. You see the 3. You see the 1 against the 3.
Right.
You see the built-in draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
See the built-in draw
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the 3 and the 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 1's the keeping the face closed part.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I come through to the finish. Walk around in front of me now. Walk around in front. I'll just stay right there. Yeah, there you go. Now, so Nick, just put the arm. Put that along the arm. Put the stick along the arm.
This arm, sorry.
Yeah. Along the arm. Okay. Now you see that's basically my grid when I set up at the setup. Yes.
Yeah.
When I come through, and then when I finish on a full swing, it would look like this. So I'm transporting that piece of pie all the way around.
And you see that with the pros. They come in here and they're
Yeah, their finishes are all like
They're
this,
here
right? That shaft is like perpendicular like this. It's not rolled over. It's not.
even Tiger now.
Yeah, of course, right? So
It's none of this.
that gets me through, basically. Up and down with the wrist, radial ulnar deviation, it's wrist cock. If I make that punch shot into a full swing to get the last part of the distance, I just start retracting my shoulder, turning my hip farther around the yard, transporting the 3-1, going farther on both sides. So if I just started adding the wrist cock to the backstroke at the finish, you see how I can start getting the height and the carry. Nick, does that ball draw?
Every single time.
Yeah.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
And I added the height to that punch shot by adding a bigger backswing with more abduction, adduction, and more recocking on the finish. so I could start getting more.
Oh, what do you
throwing
mean recocking? What's the recocking?
Well, the punch shot, right? I just went to the point of full extension.
Right.
This is the widest point of the swing. It's the only point in the swing where both arms are straight. So I do a lot of practice going to the point of full extension, that diagram.
Right.
It's their low trajectory.
Yeah.
And then from there to get the angular momentum, I would start adding the wrist. See how it pulls towards the center to slow the club down?
Let the wrist go.
And then the elbow.
You bring the wrist around.
So it go like this. And so many people are stuck back here with the wrist going
And
before.
that helps you when they say release it.
Right, right. So they're back
and you're
here,
behind
right?
and you're releasing and you're behind.
So they've released the club
Yeah.
back here without getting the arms and club to go around.
And you're utilizing your turn automatically.
Correct. So
Those are ball strikers.
that's the routine on the wrist. Palmar flex towards the palm. Put your lead arm out.
Yeah.
That lead arm, flex towards the palm. Lead arm,
Left arm.
Oh, the left.
Or righties.
Yeah.
palmar flex would close the face. Close the face to the shaft.
Right.
Okay. So why does the ball slice? Why does the ball curve to the right?
Oh,
Because you're close to your
Hold
face.
up. Why does the ball curve to the right?
Oh, to the right because it's open.
Yeah.
Face is open to what?
To the radius.
To the
the
radius.
radius.
What is the mechanism that closes the face to the radius? For the lead wrist? For the lead wrist? What's the mechanism that closes the face
Oh,
to the radius?
The close it is this.
Palmar flex.
Yeah, palmar flex.
Palmar flex.
Put that in, okay.
From the lead hand. And what from the trail hand? The 3 against the 1.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Right.
So from the lead wrist, the palmar,
Right.
and the trail wrist, right?
Palmar.
The twist.
Palmar. You call this
Twist.
palmar flex.
Flex towards the palm.
Ah.
Palmar flex.
Okay.
Okay.
See, I have no idea of when you're talking prior to this, the
Yeah.
1, the 2, the 3, you go out there and you feel it and
Yeah,
you're
right.
doing it, but you have no idea what's creating
Yeah,
it.
that's right. That's my
Right.
point.
Or what
That's
the
my point.
connection is. With
Right,
the-
exactly.
Now at
Whole
least
deal.
you know when you go practice, you go, okay,
So this should be, we
I
went
get
through
it.
this, this should be a pretty straightforward process, right? Ball curves to the right, why is the ball curve to the right? Low points
And you
back,
can
why is the
build
low
on
point
this.
back?
Every day.
How do I,
Right.
so how do I, and the great thing is it's not a moving target. You know, it's a concrete set of things to work from. It's attainable, measurable, tangible checkpoints.
So TrackMan actually sort of validates all this in a way that's measurable. Like,
Or TrackMan was built around Andy's brain.
oh, I see.
That might,
Yeah.
but yes, it does. It validates it because it was built around it.
Right.
Yeah. You might say it was built to validate.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That might be a bridge too far, but
Yeah.
you know, you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay,